Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ring Post Radio, the only podcast that does a special bonus audio and video for you as we head into Wrestlemania Weekend, a weekend full of independent wrestling shows, minor wrestling companies, and major wrestling companies alike all coming together, converging in Las Vegas, Nevada for some fun wrestling events. Scotty and I, when we were originally looking through this is like a month or so ago, looking through the various cards from WrestleMania Weekend as they were putting together. One show, well, many shows, but one show specifically as well, struck out to us immediately as a potential show of the weekend. That is no lie. That is a legit shoot phrase that I think I said to Scotty. Obviously, there also been some changes, but I don't think that those changes have affected that opinion. I think it's still, this could be a show of the weekend indeed for WrestleMania Weekend, and since you guys are friends of the pod, we wanted to reach out and talk to you guys to hype up this show, and that show is, of course, Pandemonium Pro Wrestling. The House Always Wins, April 17th in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm joined here by Nick. Hart, thank you for coming on to the show. Thank you for coming on to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
I should say also, Scotty is not here because Scotty, if I'm not mistaken, is afraid of you.
Yeah, he's avoided me for a long time. He's big leagued me, wouldn't let me on any of his podcasts. I always say it, Big Joshi Media has exiled me. I can't get on Stardom Quest either. All these guys big leaguing me. But I'm finally here. When he finally needs something from me, here I am.
He needs something from you, and then decides also to not show up, and that's
exactly, yeah.
And that's that's the Scotty way. If I've ever seen,
I gotta give him credit. He's committed to the bit.
Yeah. Well, look, if I know Scotty, he commits to bits. Sometimes too much, and that's and that's to my discretion, but not discretion, but whatever. Anyways, Nick, thank you for coming on to the show. I'm very excited to talk to you because, like I said from at the top, this genuinely, House Always Wins is genuinely, I think, one of the shows to watch this weekend for sure. I'm very excited about it. So thank you for coming on. I want to ask you a couple questions, obviously. House Always Wins, April 17th, Las Vegas, streamed live on YouTube, or if you're in the area, KPVM TV. How did the TV part of it things come together?
That was our owner Asan's whole deal. I mean, he's been working on that for a while. He went and had a meeting with them live and in person in Las Vegas. I'm not sure really about the intricacies of what that goes with and everything, but I mean, we're not getting paid. It's not like a real network deal or anything.
Sure.
But we have a very specific time. We're going to run commercials, everything like that, just locally. So yeah, if you're in the area, basically, just YouTube will be blacked out or whatever for people in Las Vegas. But if you're there, the network is available, I believe, in every single hotel in Las Vegas. So
that's very exciting. That to me, that's a very exciting little perk to add into this whole.
Very much so, yeah. Also, just because we get to look cool saying that we're going to be on TV, regardless of any form.
Hey, look, sometimes if I learned anything in wrestling, it's sometimes you just need gimmicks to help yourself look cool.
Oh, absolutely.
House Always Wins, of course, April 17th. I want to ask you up top first, just generally sell a show. Why should people check out The House Always Wins?
I mean, when you look at especially the time zone, we have our friends running against us. We're friends with people in Defy. We're friends with Big Time Wrestling's been really awesome. Communicated with us. We have a couple of the same talents on the same show. Really, I mean, when you look at the card, I think we're the best show at that time, including Stardom. Obviously, I'm personally sad that I'm not going to go to Stardom, but I know Sumi. I've texted Sumi. They haven't even announced their card yet, so. If you want a guaranteed card that is going to be put together the way that you like it, it's going to be ours. We have, Duke returning obviously he had that match in ROW, but the big match during the biggest weekend of the year. We just announced Kingsley as a replacement. This is her US debut. Miyu Watanabe, this is her first true indie booking in the sense that TJPW wasn't as involved as far as putting together the show or anything. So we don't have any TJPW officials going to be there. It's just me. We're picking up from the airport and she's at the show. So from my understanding, what they told me, this is her first true indie, which is actually kind of a big deal, just in the sense that they said they don't do this with companies they haven't really worked with before. And we've had Miyu on our show before, Maki Ito, but that was like a normal, in US tour booking directly from them. But I guess my relationship with them and everything kind of helped us be able to put it together. So super unique. When we look at, when we announced the CMLL guys, people kind of assumed it was going to be one of those CMLL versus Dragon Gate kind of matches or whatever. And I wanted to do something a little different. So I said, let's do one and one. Because Rob Viper for WrestleCon last year did that big 5-on-5. That was awesome. But I wanted to do something a little different. So even when we're looking at similar towns being booked in a completely different way. So I think we just have the most unique card, I think, of the weekend in general, on top
Mhm.
of being maybe the most stacked card of the weekend.
Yeah, I genuinely like it, and speaking about that sort of indie booking for Miyu Watanabe. That's what's interesting about that is like, especially coming from like a Japan culture, that level of trust that's being given with an indie, I think is it says something. It says something a lot
I
of what this
cannot put them
promotion
over
is.
enough. Specifically, Akira Takahashi from Cyberfight, super professional, super great. Like the most communicative person I've ever worked with or anything. So I cannot put over them and TJPW like over enough.
Mhm. So talk to me about the creation and conception of this card. Obviously, I think with any wrestling company in on any level, how the card starts in your head and how it results. It is a minefield trying to get to the end result. In many ways,
Yeah.
it feels like improv, right? Where it's just like you have an idea, but you're just gonna roll with the punches and play with it as it goes. So, talk to me about the sort of conception of this card and how it has changed and evolved to the at a time of recording Monday before the show.
So when just from my perspective, I knew friends that had worked in Pandemonium before I ever joined, like to be a part of the team or anything. So they were supposed to have a show in 2023, I believe, and our promoter's father got sick. They had to cancel the show, and he basically took a hiatus for about a year. So when he started putting this card together, he reached out to some people that they had previously planned on booking, like Mustafa Ali was someone that we had direct contact with, some of the photographers, people that kind of were owed a booking in a sense. And then he kind of just got in touch with like an agent. Agent was sending him people, who are available for the weekend. That's how Wardlow came about. Shelton, we actually had Shelton booked before he signed with AEW.
Yeah,
So that was, it was just kind of putting together. I got involved because my friend at Epic Pro said, "Hey, my friend needs help with graphics." Started helping with the graphics. I can't help myself, and I started telling him, referring him certain wrestlers and saying like, "Oh, I know these people and this person." And then it kind of just became more of a trust system and all of us working together. So Robert Martyr is our official booker. Like moving forward, we're planning on doing shows more frequently. He's in charge of those. It's all his vision. For this show, it's a little more collaborative, or using every connection that I have to put together this massive show. So if I know people in certain places, we've helped kind of work this together. So for me, it's just been kind of like, who's cool, who are people like, what connections do I have, and it's ended up with me booking about 80% of this card when I'm not the booker. um, but
but hold on, but Robert Barter takes the credit just real quickly.
yeah, listen, Robert is gonna be the guy. Listen, I'm not a booker, so like when the show
I
starts,
know. I'm
I'm gonna
just
be have
ribbing.
no idea what I'm doing. So Robert's gonna be putting holding the show together and making sure everything runs smoothly. And he has more long term vision. The reality is like we can't run a show like this every month. Like shout out West Coast Pro and Prestige. They're able to put out these like massive cards like this and stuff,
Sure.
especially Prestige. But we're not there yet. So we want to kind of do something a little more grounded moving forward. So Robert's really going to be the one putting all that together. But for the super mega show, then we're going to, kind of use every connection we have to try to book what we can. So from every person that's pulled out, like Wardlow's out, okay, who would be cool to fix to replace them? We had DM'd Duke about it. He was still trying to figure out his visa, got
Yeah.
his visa done, says he's available. So that Wardlow pulls out, and we're trying to figure out, is he a good enough replacement? Will people see it as a downgrade, upgrade? It's like kind of that WWE mentality of like, don't underbook, overbook, or like don't underdeliver, overdeliver.
Yeah.
So yeah, when it comes to replacements, it's literally just like us all talking, like who do we like, who's available, who vouches for who, stuff like that. So
I should have asked this from the top, but contextually, what is your involvement with the promotion? It sounds like you're sort of a talent liaison, graphics department. What is on an for a company like on this sort of size? What is your involvement in it?
Technically speaking, like graphics, head of communications is really what like we kind of put it in like an official term. So,
Mhm.
like I'm the one on the Twitter, mostly talking to the talent, booking, filtering out stuff. I'm also really nerdy about wrestling. So if a wrestler I've never heard of reaches out and they send us their resume, I'm not kidding when tell a wrestler like, yeah, I'm gonna check you out. I'm gonna watch their matches and go through it and stuff, and then I'll go back. And Robert's, obviously in the scene, so he knows a lot of people on the East Coast and down South Texas,
Yeah.
Florida area. So he'll be like, oh yeah, like I'll just say like, hey, this person reached out. I think they're really good, and he'll just go, oh, I've worked with them. Oh, they're awesome. And put most of our group chat is just putting over everyone and wishing we could book everybody on our show, and I mean that so genuinely.
That's hilarious. Hey, look, it's always this sort of things that whether or not they can come together.
Oh
Timing
yeah.
is everything.
If it were up to me, I would have a card of like 20 matches of mostly just like indie wrestlers that I like.
When did you start working with Pandemonium?
It would have been mid-December, so they already had the matches that they had already had announced were or planned, I guess. So they had already announced Shelton and Wardlow, and then I think the first match we announced was Mustafa Ali versus Ninja Mac, and that was really appealing to me because obviously, like Mustafa Ali is Mustafa Ali, but Ninja Mac is actually one of my first interviews when me and Scott worked on the same website. Uh, Ninja Mac was one of the first people to like let me interview him
Hmm.
for our tiny little website. So that was like that meant a lot to me. Just be like, oh wow, I'm working with him on a show. And then Sean Legacy versus Tommy Billington was like at the time like a one of the first WWID versus NXT people or WWID versus AEW people, and not really in the sense anymore. One, it's not as big of a deal, but it's also just like a different. Tommy's not on AEW every week, but
Yeah.
Sean Legacy's great. He's been so awesome to work with. So it's someone I wasn't super familiar with, and he's really won me over. I think he's fantastic. I think he's an awesome guy. Shares all of our stuff, hypes the show. Really excited. Um, so we did that one, and then we had Mo Jabari versus Shelton Benjamin. We had to pull Mo for reasons, and then it was Epic Pro once again stepped in and said, "Hey, I know Kevin. I think Kevin would love this match if you guys are willing to work with him."
Yeah.
Then we did that. So yeah, that was all like literally December was just all of that, and we were already having changes in this in December. So
Yeah. Now your main event is completely different. From
completely different. Now it's a AEW rematch.
Yeah. Hey, I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining about it whatsoever. And we're gonna get see more of it than we would have seen
Absolutely.
on television. So you joined in December. Did you join before or after their December show?
So they didn't actually end up having their December. So they had to cancel that
What?
whole show. So the last show, I think their December show was 2023, I believe.
Oh yeah, it is 2023, not
So then they started
2024.
announcing this stuff for 2024, and
Yeah,
then it got So I'm a little like loose on the timeline too because I joined December of 2024, so that's when I really started getting involved.
that's fair. Well, let's talk about that co-promotion stuff that you're kind of already alluding to. This show has talent that has been involved and or contracted with AEW, TNA, DDT, Tokyo Joshi Pro, Dragon Gate, CMLL. I think like Ella Envy worked at NWA. I think she's just an indie, but there's that too if you want to throw that in here. And obviously, like you said, even WWE ID talent. What are, from your perspective, what have been the pros and cons with working with these other promotions?
The A little bit of both for everything, CMLL has a lot of do's and don'ts, obviously like there I don't know if this is like a thing. I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but they're very, like kayfabe is real, keep kayfabe alive and stuff like that. So when it comes to promoting and who I'm supposed to talk to, I can only talk to specific people about the matches and stuff like that. So it's a little different. It also like we had to get permission for them to like be on our posters, and all the roster had to get checked, because they're very particular about who they work with.
Yeah,
Um, TJW is the same thing. It was the one of the reasons why I think that match happened is because when we pitched it, I'm guessing they told Miyu that what the match was immediately, and Miyu knew who Maya was or was excited about it because she immediately followed Maya on Twitter, and he came back and was like, "Yeah, she's perfectly like good to work this match. She's excited for it. This is the match we want." And then when we've had changes, they kept asking us like, and this is the match that's still happening, right? And we're like, yes, like this one is not changing. So um there's just certain rules and stuff. Like, when we book Kevin Blackwood, we get to talk to Kevin Blackwood, uh let him, like, he represents himself, he carries himself, stuff like that. Versus having to go through like four different channels to book people.
Yeah.
Agents are tough because they're being told the same thing from big companies that we are, and then last second it's like, oh, we can't use them. So then it's another like day wait from hearing from the company to the agent to us. So it's a little difficult. And then they have a job to do. So they're like, oh, you lost this person. Here's 7 wrestlers that are under contract with us that you want to use, that you can use. And it's like, well, we're not really interested. Like, it's just different. And so
So you
there's
wait, you
pros
you
and
get like a list of wrestlers that like, oh, these guys are available.
yeah, like, I don't think that's like a really big secret or anything. I mean, they just have people, that they represent. So they're like,
Yeah.
here's who we represent if these are people you're interested in working with, and they kind of go from there. So that's how we got Shelton, I believe, is because he had reached out, or the owner had reached out about someone else, and then they were like, this person's unavailable. We have these names. So
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
yeah,
Uh, so you talked about Shelton. Obviously, there are some people that have been pulled from the show. In the main event. Obviously, you mentioned Mo Jabari. You mentioned Shelton Benjamin. Shelton Benjamin being probably the bigger name, not probably the bigger name for most people. Obviously, he's decided to go hang out with Scotty in Boston instead. Another person ducking and dodging you. So talk to me about that process. That I imagine stressful process of rebooking your main event.
yeah. It's kind of funny because that one at least came. I think if that had been changed again, like early on, we would have been a little more panicked. But at that point, we had already been talking to CML and already had, 2 people. And
Yeah.
I'll put him over again. Rob Viper from WrestleCon, who books the WrestleCon Super Show. He had helped me out immensely with the CML stuff, so he had already had him booked for his show. He's in a 3-on-3, and so I was like, do you want to split flights or whatever? And he's like, yeah, no problem. And then the only thing he asked was that we didn't announce it before his match. But he helped
That's
us.
fair.
They already had the flight and hotel booked and everything, so it kind of just worked out for there. So yeah, it's kind of nice because even when we say like we're working with these CML places like that, all the indie companies that we've worked with have been great as well. And organizing times and this, like I said, Big Time Wrestling, same time as us, they have 3 of the same people on a roster. They're reaching out to us to ask when their matches are and if they can make it to both venues because it's so close.
Mhm.
I'd had previous conversations with Scotty and West Coast Pro about Marvelous wrestlers when they were coming in, and so there's obviously going to be some people who are a little shady or gatekeepy, but all the people that we have communicated with have been so great, like Prestige, West Coast Pro, WrestleCon, Big Time, all those places. So we did have a company that was looking at working the same venue as us, and then that didn't work out, and then there was another venue that they decided to do, and then they backed out of that one and got their own. So that one I'm gonna not as fun, but it is what it is.
Hey, it is what it is. It's business at the end of the day.
But yeah, like the I guess to answer your question is we'd already made all these changes and we already changed the main event once, so we felt pretty confident like that we do have a replacement that's going to be of equal value, which is hard to do with Shelton Benjamin.
Yeah. Hey, look, but over here on Ring Post Radio, we're big Hetchy fans.
Yeah.
That's why we call him Big Hetchy. So we're not going to complain at all with Big Hetchy on the card. So I think that's a solid replacement for what he can get. Are there any matchups? Speaking about some of the wrestlers, are there any matchups that uh, any of the wrestlers requested to have? You sort of alluded to that with possibly with Mia Watanabe.
So with I'm really good friends with Maya. Maya's one of my best friends in wrestling. So when we're doing this and I convinced them like Maya's going to be on the card, I was like pushing for her. She's the only person that like nepotism works. I was like I really want her on the card. I think it would be awesome because just for me, like if I'm working on a show, I want one of my best friends to to have that experience with me, right? And luckily she's someone who has like a good reputation and is very good in the ring and can wrestle anybody.
Yes.
So that match wasn't really requested. I just think that they asked Miu if she wanted it, and she was like, I know who that is. Because Jada was just announced to go over there. So I don't know if she knew who she was for that. No idea. The only match we had fully requested is a real bummer because it was changed 10 minutes ago, and Zara and Hyon really wanted to wrestle each other. So that was a big one. They had posted about it. Zara was already on our card. Hyon had reached out. So unfortunately that one is now changed, but that's we tried to do that one, and that's a bummer because that's obviously like a match I wanted to see just as a fan. But
Yeah.
Hyun's been so great and like and helped with every promotion thing we've asked her. She's obviously incredible. I just saw her last night against Azumi live, one of the best wrestlers in the world. So to kind of take away like a dream match, both like on paper and for them, it just kind of sucks. But the only other one similar we had is Mao versus Masha. We had kind of asked Masha who she would be interested in facing, and then Mao same thing. And then we're like, well, both of you are available. Is that something you guys are interested in? And Masha was like, immediately was like, yes, please, that's the one I want. And so she's seems really, really, really excited about it. So I'm very happy with that.
That's always fun to hear because you get to that sort of behind the scenes, like see like what people are excited about. That gives an extra like oomph of anticipation for the match because you know that like people like Masha Slamovich is like, I want this to be really good because this is the one I want. So it's always
Yeah,
good thing for fans to watch.
yeah, I think like Masha's in such a unique position where she's always like the person you want to face against like the big incoming wrestler, right? Because she's one of the best wrestlers in the U.S. Her and Hyon very similar with that, where it's like Azumi's in town, we want them to face this person. This person's in town. So to give Masha just something like unique, that's still going to be a very good match. Like they're two incredible wrestlers, but they also like have worked together a bunch, on the same cards. Both very talented, both insane people. So to have them two crazy people go one on one, I think is really exciting. So.
Are there any? You already mentioned that a little bit. Are there any some matches that you're personally excited to kind of see live? I'm sure you're going to be busy, but to certain degrees, kind of. Are you? Is there anything that you're super excited to see live?
I'm not kidding when I tell you like the reason why we like our card so much is because we all like it from top to bottom. Like I don't there's nothing on here that I'm like I don't care. I don't miss that one, whatever. Like everybody's, even when it comes, like I said, our pre-show match with Tommy versus Sean, like I wasn't even familiar with Sean. And then since then have become such a big fan of him and just him as a person. So like that one, I'm like, I can't believe that's like the pre-show match. Like that's
Yes,
crazy to me. So no, I mean, I all of them, but if I'm picking one, it's obviously going to be Miyu versus Maya because that's one my friend did too. Miyu is just incredible. But this is gonna be my first time seeing the CBLO guys live. We have the women's tag, which is three people who have been on our shows before, three people that we all really like and everything. Actually, wait, no, sorry, Brittany. I don't think has been on our show. She was booked for a show and couldn't make it in the past. But
hmm
Brittany just moved to Las Vegas, so she had reached out, and we're like, I was like, yes, please. Like I was like, this is someone I think we should work with. And then that's how Ella came out too. She messaged us on Instagram, sent us a really nice message with all of her preferences. But I think that match is going to really be it's like lower on like the international like known level, on the card.
sure.
But I think they're really going to surprise it because they're all really excited for it. It's two people who have worked with us before. It's now Sandra's on her retirement tour. I think they're really going to surprise a lot of people, I think.
That match, of course, Sandra Moon and Brooke Havoc versus Brittany Brooks and Ella Envy. So
Yeah.
you, by being the sort of communications person and being the like I said, talent liaison is the phrase I'm using. In terms of helping and assisting and booking and getting people and cultivating this sort of roster, I guess you can say. Um, what is it that like as sort of the filter, I guess you could say, what is it that like you're sort of like looking into when you get when you see matches and footage of thinking about potential people for this kind of promotion in not pandemic, Pandemonium Pro.
Yeah, probably a bad name to have after that,
Agreed. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but it's too close.
Bad
Uh,
slip of the tongue there.
I'm gonna be like, there's nothing really specific we look for as far as like pros. Like, I mean, when Ella messaged us, it was like perfect timing. We were looking for something. She is great. Like, we think she's great, and
Yeah,
she sent us a very professional and nice message. She was very excited about it. She was so excited about the show, she accidentally let it slip up in a podcast before she was announced. So, like obviously she was super apologetic about it, but I was like, that just shows how excited she was for it. So, no, I mean, there's nothing that I'll tell you. There's messages that people send that were like that are kind of immediately like turn turn us off or whatever. Where it's like when some message
sure.
is like, "Is there someone available to talk to?" Like we're a chat bot or something, or when they send us like just a weird like, hey, I want to get booked by you or something. It's just like weird messages like that where I don't think I'm like this most like professional person in the world, but sometimes we'll get messages where I'm like, you could have put something,
There's a
give us reason to like look at it and stuff.
personality, a vibe sort of
Yeah.
thing of if you're meshing together sort of
I
thing.
don't even mind if someone says like, hey, my friends on this show, they said I'm supposed to talk to you, because like I've gotten messages
Yeah.
directly,
Yeah.
and like I don't mind that kind of stuff. Like yeah, like I mean that's half our card is people referred by other people and stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's just but as far as the matches go, it's like as long as like one big one for our group, you don't have a reputation of being someone that's hard to work with or difficult or anything like that. And we just like your work, and then we like everybody on our card's work.
Yeah, it's like I said again, a great card. That main event, Kevin Blackwood versus Big Hetchy, the women's tag here, and also you have well again probably one of my most anticipated matches of the weekend. That is a CMLL Dragon Gate talent special tag team match: Teton and Ben K versus Barbaro, Cavanario, and Yamato. The moment I saw this, I was like, this rules. Legitimately, this looks so great. I think this is such a great some pair to put together. How did this match come together, and whose crazy idea was it to have instead of CMLL versus Dragon Gate, just mixing it up and doing this sort of half and half?
I will take credit for literally all of this match, because so I had messaged Ho because I knew him through someone else, and I knew he was taking bookings, and he gave us a list of names and everything like that, what he needs from us, stipulations, stuff like that. So we're kind of looking through, and we're trying to figure out which guys we want that would be like not necessarily unique, but like because like when Dragon Gate guys get booked, it's a lot of similar guys, or these mixed groups or whatever. So it's like we were trying to figure out, okay, well, we don't want to do the thing that a lot of companies do, and this isn't any disrespect to them, but like having the two people from different factions on the same team just because they're from the same company thing. So having a heel with a baby face, whatever you want to do. So we're trying to figure out how to kind of work that. Um, the the CMLL guys happened because we had more AW people booked that weren't announced that we got denied for.
Sure.
Um, and so we were trying to figure out, okay, how do we replace like this tag kind of thing? Obviously, like all like two of our champions, technically three, with the Morrison and Nyla and Serpentico are tag champions,
Hmm.
and the whatever TV champion. So we're trying to get like big name replacements for some of these bigger names that we had on our show. So I had reached out, funny enough, to Soberano Jr., and we had been talking, and then we had Templario announced, and then Templario accidentally had to pull, which I'm assuming is now because I think he's staying in Japan for a bit, but that's not that we didn't know at the time. So we'd announced
Yeah.
him, then not gotten him. So that was kind of a bummer.
Hmm.
So we're trying to figure out like replacements and everything. And then Soberano says, "Oh, I can't make it. Like, they told me no, but I want you should book Cavernario." Like, and so it's funny, he was like pushing for him hard. Like he was like, he wants to work the show, he's so excited for it. And then he seemed very enthusiastic about the show, very excited for it. So just another like recommendation from one wrestler to another, and so we kind of just went with it because one, like I'm not super into like CML as much as my friends are. Like I'm not gonna pretend to
Sure.
be like, but I know for just from like how enthusiastic they are and this and that. So like it comes down to like asking like, hey, do you think we should book this guy, or what's the general view on this person or whatever. So then we had him, and originally we were gonna have him versus I believe Ben K, in just a one-on-one.
Yeah.
And then we were trying to figure out like, okay, well, maybe we do a tag instead, and it was back to like step one, and then this one just kind of came about where we had all these guys available.
Hmm.
We were trying to figure out between the three Dragon Gate guys which ones would make sense in the tag, which one would make sense for Cappuccino because we wanted to give him a match. And then this is kind of just how it ended up being when we were kind of discussing like options, whatever. I'll be totally honest, this is the funniest thing about the match. I literally said that we should put Yamato and Cavernario together on the match because they both have long hair and they could be like beautiful hair friends. And so that's really what it comes down to for me.
That's look, sometimes that's awesome. Sometimes you just, whatever creative decision strikes in the moment, you gotta pursue it. You
I'm like,
gotta
they got
pursue
beautiful hair. They're awesome.
it. That's legitimately great. Yeah, it looks like a great match, and I think it's great inspired booking. And the fact that you're like, yeah, I'm not like as high on CML as like a lot of my other friends, but like everyone else that is high on CML is like, holy shit, this match rules.
No,
I think
dude,
that
that
says
was literally the
something.
reaction. Cause like obviously I know a lot of like the big names. Like that's why we reached out to Soberano Jr. And like um when I was like, yeah, is Cavernario, is that that's how you pronounce it, right? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just making sure, I keep fucking up.
No worries.
Anyways, so
Look. I nail names all the time on the podcast, so there's no concerns whatsoever
his is like the
here.
only one I have trouble with.
That's fair. For me, it's the Nario, it's the Ario Cavernario. It's a lot of that.
His Twitter handle confuses me too because it's like a mix of both.
Yeah,
So that, yeah, every time I'm trying to look him up, I'm like, what is this thing again?
yeah.
Anyways, when I told them, so shout out Eternal if you're on Twitter. He's my
Hey,
friend.
listener of the show.
Yes, I asked him, hey, what's your feelings on this guy? And he just goes, that's literally my favorite wrestler in the world. And I was like, oh, okay, so we should book him because me and him have very similar tastes. So I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
immediately, like, I'm like, okay, I get it. And then Floke, I think he's a listener too. He's was been one of our big translators, so he's awesome.
That's great. That's fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very exciting tag team match. You mentioned you also have the other third Dragon Gate guy, KZ, and he's facing up against Cappuccino Jones. I want to just lay this out here now. You have WWE ID talent, right? Cappuccino
Hmm.
Jones, Sean Legacy, but of course, no WWE ID matches. Just to confirm any sort of things that have popped up in the past couple of months with WWE ID talent, all these things. Did you ever have to consult with WWE or even like Gabe Sapolsky or anyone on getting these wrestlers onto your show?
No, no. The first time we heard from Gabe was him positively quote tweeting us. Like that was really it. We haven't had any issues. The only thing that we've been told from one of the wrestlers is like if we're selling merch, we can't have a WWE logo on it. That is literally the only thing we've heard.
Which honestly, that makes sense. I mean,
Hmm. Yeah,
that's
he
not.
can't because otherwise all of them would be booked with WWE merch all over their stuff.
Yeah, that's not even like defensive WWE. That's just like that legitimately
It's
makes
like a
sense.
brand thing.
Exactly, it's a brand thing. And at the end of the day, like I get it. Yeah, KZ versus Cappuccino Jones. I think that's really nice. Maya World, Miya Watanabe. That should be really fun. High end, obviously, that has just recently changed. So you're recently unpacking that with Kingsley, an Australian wrestler from PWA, I believe. So shout out them as well, which I believe they've done some work with Raf on the. Anyways, I'm just putting connections in my brain. This is a very great card, and I really enjoy it. There's also some other things about the show that are baffling to me. Why is Arthur Morgan from Red Dead Redemption 2 gonna be at the show?
I have
What happened here?
that is a very specifically me unique story. So I'm obsessed with that game. I'm one of those people
Great
that
game.
when I get into something, I watch like all these like videos on it, YouTube videos. And so it
Yeah.
starts recommending me shorts. And I watched this video where he's talking about like wrestling. And I was like, that's kind of weird. Like he's kind of talking about it like, oh yeah, I used to watch this and this. And then randomly on Twitter a couple days later, he posts a picture of him doing a stunner. And so I'm like, what the heck? And so I like look into it and he did some indie show in like North Carolina a couple years ago.
Oh,
And yeah, he did a stunner on it. So I emailed him, never heard anything back. And then I saw someone had gotten this like collab interview with him on Instagram. So I like commented like, how did you get in touch with him? Like I've been, wanting to work with him. And so I don't know if he saw that comment because he didn't like it. But then he messaged us back on Instagram like months later and was like, oh, this sounds awesome and blah, blah, blah. Here's my actual email. And so we kind of worked together on it. And yeah, he's so excited for the show. Like nicest guy in the world. It's kind of funny because when I was talking with him about it, I had a phone call with him and I don't think he put it together like that. He definitely did. He didn't put it together that it was like WrestleMania weekend and stuff. He just
oh,
thought it was like another
interesting.
show. So
Interesting.
I'm at work. I was on my lunch calling him, and then I go back to work, and I don't realize until later that night that he left me the nicest voicemail I've ever seen in my life. I can send it to you after. Like
Sure.
it was the nicest thing ever, and he was like, he was just like all clicking for him. He was like, oh, that's this weekend and this, and so he was like down to do it, and he's here. So we have some fun stuff with him.
It sounds like ultimately for him, from his perspective, it's also getting him in town from WrestleMania weekend. And it sounds like he's
Yeah.
slowly realizing, like, oh shit, I can go to all these, I can go to all these shows. Holy crap,
Yeah,
I'm
like
here.
when we had the original conversation, we said like, obviously, I believe this is his first WrestleMania weekend he's ever even attending.
Yeah,
So I said like, realistically, I know that you're gonna want to do other stuff too at our shows on Thursday. Not the best time, Thursday, Friday. We're not gonna try to get you home on before the weekend even really starts or for WWE. So we kind of just worked out kind of a deal with like paying for his like flight and hotel for the time while he's here.
sure.
So he's really really excited for it. I believe he's going to WrestleMania, but I'm not 100%.
Oh, we'll find out. I'm sure we'll get one of those long zoom lenses over to Arthur Morgan in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of
Yeah.
in the 200s or whatever of
somewhere over there.
WrestleMania.
Yeah, like, I believe he said that his kids are fans too. So I don't know if they're coming.
Mm.
But yeah, he said his kids were like fans of wrestling too. So
Well, speaking about people and long zoom lenses, this is a question from Scotty specifically, and he wanted to make sure for me to ask you this, which is specifically if listeners of the show might know where I'm going with this. Scotty wants to know, why didn't you book Evil? He's here. He came here last weekend. He's come last
okay,
year. He's coming this year. Yeah, one show over on I think Defy, right, against Michael Oku. Why didn't
yes.
you book Evil?
Listen, I love Defy, but that's a second. You know, nice to know that we were his first choice.
Oh,
So
what really?
here's the genuine story of how it happened. So a couple weeks ago, I think this would have been like a week and a half ago at this point.
Sure.
We're trying to figure out a replacement for the main event.
Mm-hmm.
We're working through all this stuff. We finally send the money over to CML for Hechicero. And I'm not kidding. 2 hours later, I'm at the bar with my real life friends, and I get a text message, and I look down, and I'm like, "Why is Sumi Sakai texting me at like 11 o'clock at night?" And then she just texts me, "Oh, Evil wants to be on your show. Here's his booking rate and this and that." And then we're trying to like, can we fit him in anywhere? Like, where can we put him? And we just couldn't do it. And I was like, if she had texted me like 2 days before, we might have gone with him versus Kevin, which I think would have been an awesome match too.
Hold on, him over Kevin. I thought it would have been over Big Hetchy. Him over Kevin.
Oh no, sorry, him versus Kevin. It would have
Okay,
been him versus Kevin.
I was like,
Sorry.
Evil versus Big Hetchy. Oh my!
No. We would never. No, we would never kick Kevin off our show. He's the best.
Sure.
No, it's just
I like
when
him
we're
in Black
looking at
Blood too.
options, like we're still working with CML on this thing, and we're not fully confirmed if he's there until like the day of. And I'm like, of course you would text me this like 2 hours after we sent the deposit or whatever.
Yeah.
And so we just couldn't make it work. I mean, it didn't make sense on our card. We think like putting him on a random like 3 or something would have been like done him a disservice. So he's awesome. I hope we can work with him in the future. Sumi's like the best, and Sumi always texts me stuff and wants like different people she works for and work with
Yeah.
and help. So she was great, and we even like tried to say like, well, if he doesn't get booked, he can come do like a meet and greet. And he can keep all that. We just to be at the show, which I think he was considering, but he obviously got booked for Defy.
Yeah. Well, look, Evil getting here would have been really fun. I think obviously the premiere match for that would have been Ninja Mac and Mustafa Ali turned into a 3-way. But ultimately, look, Scotty and I also both agree. If it's just Evil and not Dick Togo, then there's no point. There's really no point. You gotta get a little dick in this action,
Don't you disrespect Evil like that?
No, trust me. This is a pro Evil podcast. This is infamously a pro Evil podcast. I'm saying you got to complete the whole gimmick. You need to get Dick Togo as well. So work on that for the next show. Get Evil, get Dick Togo over Kevin Blackwood, maybe over Big Hetchy if you want to be bold, and we'll fix it on the next one.
I'll tell you, we had reached out to Rocky months ago, and he never replied. And then we had talked to Kojima, and Kojima's like, "Here's this email," and we emailed that person, and then they replied with Rocky in an email, and it was like, "He's available for this date," blah blah blah. And at that point, we were already like into the Hechicero one, so we're like, "Well, we'll wait to see, where this goes." So it was like in priority. It was like originally we had looked at Kojima, and then Hechicero, and then Evil randomly fell on our front, on our lap or whatever. So, but now we have Rocky Romero's email or whatever. Gabe Kidd emailed us back. He's working a different show, so he can't work that date. But
I think that's always fascinating is that, obviously when you're, to go back to an earlier question of like going from a regular indie, actually, I don't know if I asked the question, but the idea of going from like a regular quote unquote indie card to a WrestleMania weekend card, obviously you almost want to load it up and make this a sort of presentation, right, to the commoners that maybe don't know about I almost said pandemic again. Pandemonium Pro. I need to get that out of my head. Like you're trying to expose yourself, but then what on your perspective, which is very fascinating for me to learn, is that like it's not just like you're getting in contact and want to sort of like promote Pandemonium some more to us filthy casuals. It's the idea of getting more contacts so that it almost enhances. Well, it enhances Pandemonium. We'll talk about that in a moment, but it enhances the future of what this promotion can look like. You'll have more context to be able to potentially bring in more people down the line.
oh, absolutely. Like You know what's funny is when we look at like the WWAD people, like none of these people we booked because they're WWAD people, with the
Sure.
exception of like Sean's match got booked because that was an interesting idea at the time. But Sean was someone that like the promoter had already liked and everything. So Zara, we work. She's a California person. We've worked with her before. We wanted to work with her. But Cappuccino's like 100% Robert Martyr's like booked thing. Like that's his guy. He's been so high on him and praise him. So we wanted to give him a big match, but none of like the WWAD part of it really like hardly ever even came into the conversation with us, like for us. Um, when we look at like the connections for the future, like Duke, for example, like we were talking about booking him like down the line, and then his passport thing got fixed, and right then the Wardlow thing happened, and it just worked out. We're like, okay, guess it's for the show now.
Hmm.
So yeah, and there's people we've talked to about the future as well. You know, like obviously can't put her over enough. Sumi's like the best person, so she's like this person's going to be available in the summer, and this and that. So she does so much, it's crazy. Here's another little here's my another insider thing I'll tell you.
Sure. Sure.
We
I love all these exclusives that we're
Well,
getting
listen, if
opening
you
on the
like
show.
I listen, I don't know if I can curse on here.
It's fine. You can curse.
Okay, I'm a messy bitch, so like when I'm on I'll be bitching to Scott about something. I'm like, this freaking thing happened and whatever. And I can't tell him like too much, but whatever.
Sure.
So back in beginning of January, I think we had talked to Sumi about booking some of the Stardom wrestlers on our show. And then it was like, well, they can't work it because we have our show the same day. And I was like, well, is it the same time? And she says, I don't believe so, but we can look at it. And then she goes, Okada says they can work both shows. So I'm like, oh my God, we're gonna have Stardom on our show. And then I'm like, wait, we have a TJPW wrestler on the card. I have to get that approved. So I reached
Yeah.
them. Again, Kira Takahashi, coolest person in the world. He's like, he literally sends me like the nicest message, which is like, this would be a big deal if it happened, and we're gonna let it happen, but it depends on which wrestlers it is.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, now we have to figure out which wrestlers it is, and blah, blah, blah. And by the time we get like done arguing with ourselves about what match makes sense, who's this, Sumi says, oh, sorry, they can't actually do it. And so I'm like, that means it's the same show at the same time as us for sure.
Yeah.
And that comes down to other things, other people they're working with, and when their show is and where it's at, and so. But there was a very like at one point instead of CMLL people, we almost had TJPW and Stardom on the same show, which I believe only GCW has ever done.
Hmm. That would have
So
been fascinating. And look, uh, perhaps that you could have done that. I know like Stardom just like recently has like a bunch of illnesses or injuries or whatever's
yeah.
happening. So I wonder if like maybe the fact that they have two different shows, I wonder if they would have like had saved some people for the next show or something. Doesn't matter. That's all in the past.
Uh,
Uh
no, let me tell you, like these, most of the girls here, like whether it's just the money or the shows or whatever, they want to work everything. So,
of course.
at first it sounded like I thought they were only allowed to work one show a day, and now it's like some of them are working three shows. I think Shiri's literally working three shows,
I think
and
so.
Stardom, Spark, and then Marvelous.
Hmm.
So like they all want to work, they all want to do stuff. So they're all very into everything that's been pitched and stuff. That's how not to speak for that, but like Ho Ho with getting them on the Dragon Gate show. Like they want to work, they're in town, they're already here, they don't want to wait around.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Just to go on that line of talking about other people. I guess it kind of already kind of been answered, but if there were other people that are confirmed here this weekend, who would you have liked to book? It sounds like a lot of the Stardom people.
Yeah, definitely a lot of stuff. Like we got to the point where like we were like, what would this graphic look like? What would the matches be? Stuff like that, a lot of that. Like I said, a lot of indie wrestlers. There's so many people that I want to work with, like people that are my friends, people I'm just a fan of. I'll just start naming them. The Killionaires, they're wrestle like ETU, really good friend of mine, Jay Bougie. Like they're people I would pay their booking fee myself if I could to get them on this card. Mad Dog Connolly's a big one. Big fan of him. Really
I
good
love Mad
person.
Dog. I love Mad Dog.
Yeah. Amira is one that like it what sucks is like she would have been our like number one replacement for versus Hyon, but she's already booked for Defy. So
Mhm.
funny enough, Lena Cross was someone that I was like, it's a crime that Lena Cross doesn't have a booking yet. And then she gets booked for Spark. But then I mentioned to Big Time had reached out again, the same show as us, reached out about two of the girls on our show, but the timing didn't make sense.
Mhm.
So I messaged him. I was like, "Hey, you reached out for this. We were splitting Tommy Billington's flight, and I was like, if you're looking for someone, Lena Cross is like amazing, and she doesn't have a booking." And then they're like, oh, we'll look into that. And then a couple days later, like, hey, we messaged her on Instagram and she didn't reply. So I messaged her on Twitter and I was like, hey, our friends are trying to book you. And
Yeah,
then boom, she's announced for that show. So I was just like, okay, I at least got her something, even if it's not for our show.
sure.
And so like you can ask any of my friends, like Pride Style, Scotty who runs West Coast Pro, Prestige. If I see an opening, I'm like, you should book this person. You should like our card's full, but you should book this person. We were just on a Twitter space last night and I was making fun of Scotty for not I was like, you should book uh Alpha Zoe versus Danny O'Ryan, and he was like, "Oh, I don't see you booking it." And I was like, "Well, I'm not the booker." So there's like there's a lot of people. Danny O'Ryan's another one I would kill to have him on our card. I think he's so talented.
Yeah.
Might be the best male wrestler in Texas. Stephen Wolf's in the UK right now, but he's someone I want to work with so bad in the future. Yeah, just a lot of people. What's really nice is going into the show and knowing that I'm working with so many people I wanted to work with, and like it's happening. So that's like a pretty big deal for me.
A couple last couple of questions here. Again, the show is The House Always Wins, April 17th. A big conversation that Scotty and I have a lot on Ring Post Radio is regarding commentary, and sort of that idea of it's just another additional way, not just in terms of the wrestling, but in terms of presenting the story and moves of whatever kind of match you're having. With ideally, a big thing for us is ideally not distracting the flow of the match enough for that part of that presentation. How important is it for you all to create a good to great commentary booth for a show, especially for a show like WrestleMania Weekend, which, like I said, is going to potentially expose your company to a lot more filthy casuals that might not have heard of Pandemonium Pro?
Yeah, Jordan was someone I think Jordan was booked on the show before I even got here, and like he would have been my first choice anyways. So I think Jordan Castle's so good. I actually got to meet him in person for the first time last night. I think he's awesome, and so when we were asking him like, hey, originally Walker Stewart was on the show, like, hey, would you want to work with Walker? And he was like, I would kill to work with Walker.
Yeah,
And so we had the perfect balance, between Jordan being Jordan and being able to do like the color commentary stuff and really like help the narrative of the show. And Walker's like, I think at this point, I think maybe like the best play-by-play commentator in like the world right now.
mhm,
I think he's so good. And so when Walker kind of went out, we were looking at options. We're like, we don't want to try to have like two color commentators or try to focus and force one person to do something they're not comfortable with or whatever. So we were looking at options, and then Spencer Love from Love Pro. He's my friend. I knew he was going to be in town. He's done it for his shows. Um, he's the only person I could be like, hey, we want to book you. Is it cool if you do like commentary this way? And he was like, no problem at all. Super professional. So we didn't want to have the commentary be like too much. We want to let Jordan be Jordan without
sure.
having to work with like another person of that type, like being really like into the stories in the show and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's always very important, at least for me. In the past year, it has become super important to me about a good commentary booth. So it's good to hear that
Yeah.
it's come together.
I'll say just to finish up on that point, I think Jordan is so good that sometimes I feel like he gets with other announcers who it kind of becomes like a competition where it's like Jordan's so naturally good that I feel like sometimes I don't know if the other person has to like feel like they have to step it up or whatever, but it just kind of becomes like putting themselves over, you know what I mean? And not to
Yes.
disrespect anybody specifically, but we were just very specific about like what we wanted to like enhance what Jordan does versus like having two people do the same thing at the same time. So we want to use Jordan to the best of his abilities.
No, of course. Like I said, it is part of the presentation of your product, right? At the end of the day, it is the audio cue. The reason it's become so important to me is that I read in Vader's autobiography, autobiography, him talking about how like his matches felt different once JR left WCW for WWF, and it was just because JR was not on the calls there anymore. Like
Yeah,
it is an aspect of your production of the matches themselves
oh,
that can rapidly
100%.
change how it's
And
perceived.
your identity. I mean, like when I watch Prestige, it's like it'd be weird if Jordan wasn't there. And I think Pandemonium has gone through multiple commentators, so
Yeah.
we want to try to get a team together that we can have pretty consistently. So hopefully, moving forward, these are the two guys that we use. We do want to bring Walker back because Walker's like the coolest, and
Yeah.
I'm gutted that I like not. I'm not even just gutted that I don't. He's not on a show. I'm gutted that I don't get to like hang out with him and meet him because I was so excited for that. But we want to have him come back eventually as well.
Yeah, that's completely fair, and I would love to hear him on the call one of these future shows. Well, let's talk about the future because I saw on April 7th, it was announced that Pandemonium Pro Wrestling and Epic Pro Wrestling have agreed to merge promotions to create a new promotion called Worldwide Wrestling. So this sort of, I guess, potentially makes this one of the last Pandemonium Pro shows, as far as I understand things.
So
How
no, so basically what it comes down to is the our owner, so I'm now like owns both companies, right? Like legally
yes,
owns them. Epic Pro's still going to be Epic Pro. We're still going to be Pandemonium.
okay,
There is times where we're looking into possibly doing, joint shows running twice in a day or versus shows, whatever. But then we also have some other projects that we want to work with. Eventually getting to a point where we want to do like an all woman show that's not necessarily under either brand.
yeah.
There's a thing I'm working on for next year that I've been working on for a while though that Scotty knows about. So I can let you know what that is after this, but it was going back to the next thing. Like there's something that I want Scotty to do commentary for. There's like different things, and like that would be under like the Worldwide Wrestling brand versus like being because it's not really a Pandemonium show. It's not really an Epic Pro show. It'd be this other thing. So it's really just like two things under the same umbrella. That's
It's
really all it is.
more of a collaboration, an
Yeah.
AEW Ring of Honor, if you will.
Yeah. It's like there's not really distinct like rosters or anything. It's just like I would be very sad if we couldn't work with like Jordan Cruz or Alpha Zoe or any of those people that are on Epic Pro or Royce
Sure.
Isaacs especially. So no, it's nothing like that. Yeah, it's Robert's our booker. Our friend is going to be still booking Epic Pro. I don't know if he wants his name out there, but he's still going to be booking his own show. He's really good at what he does with Epic Pro, so we don't want to like interfere with that or anything like that. But no, it's just more of a conglomerate kind of thing than it is like a merger. Which the verbiage merger obviously like goes in there, but it's mostly just to say like they're both coming together under this one thing.
Sure. That's a good clarification. I think that's a good
Yeah.
clarification as well, especially for the future. Because, like I said, it was like you want to maintain the momentum going from this show into whenever the next show is happening. So keeping that consistency is, I think, going to be
We're
a good thing.
hopefully going to announce our next thing pretty soon. I don't know if we're going to get it done by our show, but we do have some LA based things. That's where we're from. I'm from Oregon. Robert's all the way in like Florida, but
Yeah,
the shows are based in LA, mostly based in LA. So moving forward, we want to do some stuff. We know some WWE shows are coming to some big shows are coming to California. So
sure. Hey, well, look, and you can always go to y'all in Texas and
funny enough,
get some commissions.
we were working so hard on that, and we were actually planning on doing something there. We had talked with so many people about doing something. We had some big international names that we were talking about doing. We unfortunately decided not to do it, and then yeah, TJPW announced that they're doing a Texas thing on a different day. That was something we had talked with them about. It just didn't really work out between how much effort has gone into this show and how much stress it's been. We just didn't want to start. We'd have to be like halfway through booking that one,
Yeah,
already. And so we just decided like, no, let's just wait. So
I didn't think about that in terms of indie booker stress of doing this twice a year.
let me
I-
tell you, Will, who runs Prestige, is the most insane person in the world because this man's promoting three shows at the same time.
yes,
So I don't know if you just saw they announced that Tony Storm's going to be at here in Portland, like on an indie show, big deal. Just announced that, like
nice.
he's the craziest man in the world. So I mean, he's promoting shows a week apart. Like I just went to where there last night, and I'm going to be at a show again next Thursday. So
That's fantastic. Yeah, look, it's always next steps ahead, that sort of idea. So maybe
yeah,
that's just something that will pick up as you become more comfortable with this whole world, I guess.
yeah. He's a different beast.
Well, again, Nick, thank you very much for talking to me, sitting down with me, and talking about pandemic. I need to stop doing that.
Makes me feel better about getting Cavernario's name wrong so many times.
That's fair, I guess. The Pandemonium Pro, the house always wins, April 17th, Las Vegas, Nevada, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific. Stream live on YouTube, or if you're in the area, of course, KPVM TV. How many are the tickets sold out? What's the ticket situation looking like?
We could use for more tickets, but we're not alone in that. It's been in general WrestleMania. I think this has been tough for a lot of indies, so we're sitting in a better position than a lot of places. But we still want to sell more tickets, so go buy them.
Yes, of course.
I do also want to say because I did put a tweet out with this. we want people to watch our show in groups and stuff. If you're watching on Twitch, Discord groups, or whatever, we don't just like encourage, like endorse it. We absolutely encourage it. We think that's what makes these shows go, trending on Twitter. What's what sets stuff apart. So we're big on that. The literally the only thing we ask is that people like the video, stream it in the background if they can. But we hope everyone streams it on Discord and watches it. Does group watches and stuff because we want people talking about our show.
Of course. You obviously want to come out of the show, and I think people will. Like I said, main event Kevin Blackwood versus Big Hetchy. There's some great matches. KZ Cappuccino Jones, Ninja Back versus Mustafa Ali. That's very exciting. That 6-man opener, probably the opener. I assume this is the match order. Duke making his stateside, U.S. stateside, I think, debut. Right.
He was in ROW literally last night.
My apologies. There we go. But Duke
we didn't know either. So.
Alan Angels, Fuego del Sol versus Jordan Cruz, Sonico, and Wicked, and a bunch of other great matches on this card. I'm very excited to see the show. 601 East Fremont Street. If you're there live, go get your tickets today. Any other plugs, Nick? Any other plugs for last minute bits to get people to get the show? Come on, people! You gotta go check out the show.
Mean, in general, like I understand not everyone can make it to WrestleMania. There's a million things going on. Check out the replay once it's done. We're filming our show. One thing I can promise you on top of our card, we're gonna have the best film like of anybody we're using 8K cameras. Obviously, it can only stream like 1080p.
What is this? Wrestle Universe? Holy shit!
Yeah, that's funny enough. We just had Miyu Yamashita versus Miyu Watanabe uploaded to Wrestle Universe, so this show should also, I believe, be uploaded eventually on there as well. So that's that was really cool. Putting over our team, like the owner's been so fantastic and really let me and Robert do a bunch of stuff. Robert's so smart and so into wrestling and knows everybody, knows everything. He's so good. I can't put him over enough. I was putting him over. He was booked for our show originally, and he took himself off the show to take this role, with 100% attention. So I've been pushing him to get booked on other shows and everything. Cannot state enough how talented and smart he is. So yeah, and then we have our friend Daniel also has been helping out with a bunch of the stuff on our show. So all four of us together couldn't ask for a better team. They're awesome. But I mean, to be honest, when it comes to the card, I don't know what else to say when it comes to selling it. I don't think there's anything that compares to us. Yeah, and I say that as a fan. The only show that I genuinely myself want to watch more than our own show is the Marvelous show, and they're not opposing each other. So, and I don't even think that's the case for everybody. I just love Marvelous. So, I think when you're looking at indies shows, ours is the best one. We have, people you've never heard of on the card and people you'll know about on top of some of the best international wrestlers in the world. So.
Yeah, and look, as of right now, on Thursday, us recording on Sunday, as of right now, it's the best card to watch Thursday, April 17th at 3 p.m. Eastern. Because
Miyu Watanabe is going to be the best Joshi wrestler wrestling at 11 a.m., 12 p.m. on Thursday, April 17th.
Yeah, as of right now. We'll find.
No. She's absolutely the best Joshi wrestler.
No, I agree. It's hard. It's good to counter against a show that has no card together. But alas. Again, Pandemonium Pro, House always wins. This is a great card. Nick, it's been great talking to you. Thank you so much for sitting down.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for listening to this special bonus episode. Again, we'll be back on Monday with our regularly scheduled Ring Post Radio, where we're going to talk about Pandemonium Pro and a bunch of other wrestling from Wrestlemania Weekend. So stay tuned for that. And until then, enjoy your Taco Bell.